It is springtime today, and I had myself a nice pickle. It grew from the garden and soaked in salt, and it's a good pickle. And now I have a friend, his name is Glen, and his last name is Tickle. He's a good old pal to be on the show, and I think he will agree with me that it is time to chat with our fellow clowns. And we're so glad to have Glen around. And Joel's Java Jive is live and well. So without further ado, let's start a brand new day today. Welcome to the podcast, Glen.
Well done. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here, my friend. It's so good to see you again.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
That paneled room is beautiful.
I was gonna say I was gonna set up in my other room, but I had to plug my laptop in to do it, and this is where the charger was. So in the interest of just getting on faster, here we are for my 80s wood paneled den.
I love a wood panel. In fact, my grandmother had a paneled room, and we just called it forever the paneled room.
Yeah, there was a meme going around a while ago that I remembered seeing of like, oh, if your house looked like this when you were a kid, like remember to stretch. And it's like part of my house looks like that now. Like this is only, it's just this one room that has it, but I don't know. It was like this way when we bought it, and I don't see any need to change it.
No, keep that the way it is, and enjoy this conversation. Is perfect because this is a retro talk. We're going back to the olden days when people would share a cup of something warm and just chat for a little bit.
Let's do it.
Cheers, my friend.
Cheers. I have room temp. I'm going with something room temperature. I can make coffee real quick.
You don't have to. It's no rule. I have kind of a 3-beverage thing going on right now. So I have coffee.
Yeah. Do you also have the ADHD? Is that?
I also have ADHD. Yeah, I have Janis Joplin tea, which is Brainstorm, and then over there's a coconut seltzer ready to go.
I remember seeing when people started talking about the 3-drink thing being an ADHD symptom. I was like, look, people do weird stuff, and it's not always a symptom. But the more other people with ADHD that I talk to, it's like, all right, maybe that one.
Maybe we'll own that.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good place to start. I was never diagnosed officially as a kid, and then I met Serena, who's my fiance, and she said, "Yeah, you definitely got it. You got ADHD."
I didn't get diagnosed as a kid, but I remember when maybe even in high school, I remember learning about it, and it's like, oh yeah, that one, that
checks out.
But still, no official diagnosis until well into adulthood. Nice. I talked about it in one of my specials because I had gone back to therapy. I had a special, not to bring the room down. I did a special. My brother died. I did a bunch of jokes about it, but I went to therapy after that happened, and the therapist is like, well, obviously depression around the loss of a sibling, but have you been screened for ADHD, man? Because you're clearly you got it. But she was just my therapist. She couldn't prescribe anything. So that was 2016. I only started taking Adderall 2 months ago.
Wow. And how's that been?
It's been incredibly helpful in a way that kind of makes me angry because that means it could have been helpful the whole time. I know it doesn't work for everybody, but I've been getting way more done in the past 2 months. And not in a way that I feel like I don't feel like they bumped my dose up and then back down because it's I don't like feeling like I have to get stuff done. But just the executive dysfunction of I mailed a package today that I've been meaning to mail for a week. And nice. I think pre-Adderall that would have taken another month probably before
Yeah.
I get around to it.
That's great, man. Well, good for you, and glad you're getting your executive Glen Tickle mind going, because we need you, man. We need you full functioning here
Oh, I
in this
appreciate
world.
it.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. Just a little background. I think it's cool to start with how we met, which is way back, and it was when I was in Corning Community College. I was on the
Yeah.
board of student trustee, and the me and some great friends went up to this thing called APCA, where all these different performers come. And you were so fun, man. We loved you. Like
I
this is a
appreciate it.
chance. Students get to pick who they want to come to the school and perform. And I remember you and my good friend Anita at the time and me, we were like all connecting, and we're like, we need Glen Tickle to come to our school.
I appreciate it. Corning specifically, you guys were one of the first schools to book me when I started doing colleges.
Yeah.
I did an APCA in Teaneck, New Jersey. That was my first one. I was there unrepped. I left with like 2 schools saying like, we would love to have you. No specific date. We'll get it taken care of eventually. Neither one panned out. And then I did another an APCA. It's the Association for the Promotion of Campus Activities, I think is the acronym.
Yeah.
And for folks listening, like comics, bands, magicians, jugglers all go, and then student activities people go and watch like 6 showcases of entertainment in a weekend to decide who they're going to book for the upcoming year, semester, whatever. But I did another one in Hershey. That one went great. I booked a lot, but I think I might have met Corning students at Teaneck.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
And
don't
we
remember
wrote
their
you down.
names, but there were 2 that I remember. The one kid, very memorable, wore like an alpine hat with buttons all over it.
Yeah.
I think he might have been a couple years ahead of you, because I met them first, and they were like trying to get me, and then it was like 2 years, which ended up being like 4 or 5 APCA events where like I kept running into students from Corning, and they're like, "Oh, we'd love to have you up," and I was like, I would also love to go. It's your call, not mine. I would love to get up there. But I think yours, it was like maybe like the second year I was doing it. I remember going up to Corning, and I don't know if you ever watched Pete Holmes' show Crashing on
Yeah.
HBO,
Yeah,
but
definitely.
people bring it up a lot because I'm a comedian, and they're like, "Oh, is it like that?" And I was like, "That show has almost nothing to do with how actual stand-up comedy goes, like from a career standpoint, except for the episode where he goes to NACA, which is like it's just another showcase thing like APCA is. But then the episode ends with he is like doing comedy at noon in a cafeteria. And it's like, that's when that happens sometimes.
That is the end result of APCA.
Yeah, because I remember when I got the contract from your school, it said 12 p.m. And I was like, well, that's probably a typo. They probably mean midnight, which, it's a little late, but sure, I'll do it. But when I forget the advisor's name, but I emailed her and she's like, yeah, no, that's just when we do it. And I was like, can I ask why? Why do you do it at noon? And she's like, it's a commuter school. If we do it at night, no one's going to be here. And I was like, fair. I mean, the students better than I do. You know when they'll come out for stuff.
Yeah.
And it was I had a great time. It
We
was
had a
weird
great
doing it in
time.
the middle of the day. And the
Yeah.
building just has like big glass walls that I was right in front of. Like I could see students walking by the class behind me while the show was going on. That was weird, but it was a fun time.
Yeah, your wandering eyes looking at people walking
Yeah.
around, and you were so funny, and you brought it, man. And you had a totally different set from what we saw at APCA. Like you just brought in such a great, interactive, unpredictable set. And I remember you really sticking out to me, especially because I've always been into comedy. I've always loved alternative comics and kind of different, unique acts. And I love what you did, man. You brought out your robot.
I was going to ask if I was still using Toybata.
You were at Toy Botto, man. And
Yeah.
that was a big hit.
So for people not that well versed in the back catalog of my material,
Yeah, we got to get into him.
I used to do a bit with my daughter's toy robot where I would make him do like dumb little robot puns, but I would like convince the audience that I was filming it and I was going to show it to my daughter, so they all had to like play along and laugh for her benefit. And one, I think it was a school in West Virginia booked me, and the advisor was just like, "Oh, it's a tech school. It's a bunch of like computer science majors. Do that robot thing for like an hour. They'll go crazy for it." And I was like, "Oh, I mean, I'll write some more for it, but it kind of wears thin after a few minutes. Like, it's fun to make people laugh at dumb puns. I don't want to do it for an hour. I also don't want to write that many robot puns, but I'll like add to it." And I was like, "Oh, it might be fun," because it was when like language models were starting to become popular, not popular, but like accessible. Like you could install a language model on like a home computer and it wouldn't melt your cards.
Yeah.
The first one I saw, somebody had like fed a language model all of Shakespeare, and then they were like, "Do more of this, please. Like write another Shakespeare play." And it would just, because it's so formatted, it was like easy for a computer to replicate, and it wouldn't be good, and a lot of it would be nonsense, but it's like, yeah, that kind of looks like a Shakespeare play. So it's like, I could probably do that with like knock knock jokes. Those are really rigidly formatted. So I found every knock knock joke I could find on the internet, put it into one document, used the same program that the Shakespeare people did. I'm like, here's a bunch of knock knock jokes. Can you do more of this? But Shakespeare had a much larger body of work than the knock knock jokes I could find, so it didn't do a good job. But like when I went down to this tech school, I explained what I did because I was told it was all computer science. I was like, you guys, if not funny, you might find this interesting. I talked about TensorFlow and how I did the whole thing. Could not have cared less. They didn't have any interest in me explaining what I was doing. They didn't like the robot puns. And it's normally like a 3-minute bit. I was like, I could do this for like 10 to 15 probably. But it was so clear they didn't like it. But I put so much work into doing all that. And it's like, well, if you guys don't like this, no one else is going to. So I'm going to do all of it here because your advisor assured me you would love this. So after this part, I'll go back to jokes while I'll have a nice time. But I'm not going to not do this now.
I'm going to retire Toybato here.
I mean, I still do the regular version of I mean, it's been a while, but like I did the regular version of it for a while because it's fun to bring a little toy robot on stage and make it tell jokes. But it is more tech setup than like just stand up. I just stand and talk to a microphone. When there's another thing I have to plug in or have it add sound, like then it's, you know, I don't always want to pack it up. I used to do a bit where I'd play the violin on stage.
I remember this.
I was going to ask, I was going to ask if you were at any of the app because I did that. And it's like, that is really fun to do, but it is hard to play the violin. It's a pain to travel with. And there involves like a backing track. And it's just like, I think it is more effort than it ends up being worth. I was going to do it to end a special, but it's like, the joke is that I play Eternal Flame by the Bengals badly on the violin and I make the audience sing along. It's like, I'd have to license the song and that, and like, I don't know how to do that. And I don't want to look it up. So I just scrapped it. Like I'll do it live sometimes still. It is fun, but
it's really fun. But someday you'll get that. No problem there. I'm sure. Yeah. They'll give it to Glen Tickle.
I produce a lot of my own stuff. If like another production company wants to handle a special and then deal with licensing Eternal Flame by the Bengals, and if people are like, well, just use like a different song, I can't. It's the only song I can play. The violin is a very hard instrument.
That's it. Don't push me. It's the Bengals or nothing. I love the Bengals. They're great. Same. When I was a kid, we did a project in school I did like a whole montage of everybody in my school doing Walk Like an Egyptian.
Yeah.
Like weird Egyptian little dances. And, I was very proud of that. All the different teachers in classrooms. I remember being very excited to show that repeatedly in class.
I did that a lot too in school. Anything I could get away with doing a video project for, it's like, I would rather make a video for this than like write a paper.
Yeah.
My kid just
Anytime.
did one for the first time, had to like turn in a video project. They had to shoot a scene from a book. So her and her friends, we all went to the park and I was like, oh, I can help you guys film it. And she's like, no, we got it. And they're 12. And it's like, yeah, actually you could probably, yeah, you can, I'm
Yeah.
here if you need me, but you guys, you go ahead.
Run wild with it. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
easier nowadays with that.
They had a
Uh,
couple like questions about using the camera and stuff. And
yeah.
then I helped them edit because they didn't really know that part. But
Yeah, that's usually it. Well, that's the thing. These kids nowadays, with the video production and editing skills and all this stuff that I went to school for, pretty soon we're going to be able to have a little toy Botto to help make us all
yeah,
studio managers.
I use so this is StreamYard. I use Riverside, which is like a similar program when I do my podcast Daddio with my friend Ricky Clore. And they have a thing where it's like I hit a button and it will just churn out like a bunch of clips.
Yeah.
And it's like that would take me forever. It would take me a very long time. And like it's AI doing it, which I don't love, but it's like, well, the person being replaced is me. Like
Yeah.
it's not like I'm not hiring someone because I also went to school for film. So when I do stuff like that, it's like, well, I'm the one doing it. So
You're
if I
saving
hit
me
that
time.
button, yeah, it's not like, oh, some editor isn't getting paid because I'm using it. It's like, well, no, it's just now I have time to do something else.
Yeah.
And it usually doesn't do a good job. It's the thing. Like I usually have to go in there and re-edit it anyway.
Yeah.
But the thing, it's like, oh, it'll like pull stuff that like social media algorithms will think are interesting, but it'll like pick up mid-sentence and it's like no one's going to understand what we're talking about if you don't dial this back 30 seconds or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. They'll say these are the high points, but
Yeah.
yeah, you might have to do some tweaking for now.
They
It's an
added a
amazing world.
feature where they will animate clips. And
Ooh.
that I don't, because that is just like they showed a preview of one to like introduce the feature and they're like, oh, we can make you look like a puppet. And I was like, I would actually rather have my friend make a puppet of me
Yeah.
and me or them operate the puppet than this terrible version of it. Actually, like this looks uncanny and I don't like it.
Too real AI puppet of Glen Tickle.
Yeah, I don't know if it was just because it was like just a quick preview to show me what it would look like, but it
Yeah.
really was bad. It didn't
It
look
threw
good at
you
all.
off.
Because in the clip that it used is a clip from one of my specials, and the part that they clipped out, so I'm holding a water bottle because it's about to take a sip of water, but the puppet doesn't put it down when I do. The logo on my shirt, which is an art print of the oscillation overthruster from Buckaroo Banzai that I did,
Yeah.
moves around because they think it's something I'm holding. I don't have the puppet doesn't have a microphone. He's just talking into the water bottle, and like as the puppet moves its arm, the shirt logo is moving with it, and it's like,
Oh
no,
God.
this
No,
ain't it.
guys. You're off. You're off. You're
Yeah,
off your meds today, AI.
it's a mess.
Yeah, well, this is fun though. So tell me a little more about your Daddy-O podcast because I am a fan of that. And for folks who want to check you out and stay in tune to what you do, tell them about that podcast.
Oh, sure. It is a podcast that I do with my friend Ricky Glore. It is one that we do ostensibly for no one. Like the point of it is Ricky is my friend. It's a fun excuse to talk to my friend every week. But also, I don't even remember. I might have said it in one of the early episodes, but I heard someone else, another comedian, on being interviewed somewhere, talked about how like having a podcast isn't a good way to grow an audience, but it is a good way to engage with the audience that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was getting ready to go on this tour with Ricky. The same we named the tour I think before the podcast because we wanted to do shows together, and we're like, we should call it something, right? Like just say it is the whatever tour. We landed on Daddio, and then it's like, oh, like if we did a podcast, we could promote the tour, right? And we could figure out exactly what the tour is going to be on the podcast. It'll be a good excuse to talk about comedy. But he and I we're like, not that either of us are terribly popular. We don't have a ton of fans, but we have some, and I'm sure some of them would like to hear from us once in a while.
Definitely.
So the show is literally just like me. It's like if you aren't already a fan of me or Ricky, I do not think it's for you. We had a weird bump on Wednesday. We record usually Wednesday mornings. We do it live on social media, and then put it on like podcast feeds on Friday mornings. But I noticed after we got off the call on Wednesday, we usually have like a couple people listening, like while the show's going on, engagement pretty low. But then it just like leaves it up on whatever site so people can watch it. But we had like a couple thousand people watch during the. I doubt it was consecutively, and they didn't stick around the whole time. But it was like normally there's maybe 50 tops, but this was like a couple thousand for some reason. So it's like I don't know what caused this bump. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, it's only a matter of time, Glenn, before you tickle the algorithm just right.
Yeah, I'm like I'll take the views. I mean, it is normally Ricky and I just talk about. We're both dads and comedians. So we are usually talking about parenting and/or comedy, and I don't like. I don't. I don't know. I don't know if because it was on Facebook where we got the bump. So it's like I don't know if that algorithm heard a word it thought was interesting and started showing it to more people.
Yeah. I know I tuned in Wednesday. I was like getting ready to chat with you. I'm like, let me see what he's up to.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So maybe I boosted it. I sent
Maybe
send it
that's
around a
probably what
little bit.
it's a fun show to do. Ricky likes to bring up. I started doing a thing where I don't like complaining on social media because when you do, then like strangers will reply, and it's like, oh, I don't care. I don't care what you think. I don't know who you are.
Yeah, it's not for you.
So if I have like a really petty thing I would love to complain about, instead of putting it on threads or whatever, I just started texting it to Ricky directly.
Yeah.
Like he's the one that I text for like comedy stuff usually. Um, and but the idea was like, well, if I text it to him, then I don't have to talk about it publicly. But then he started bringing them all up on the show. He's like, remember when you texted me to complain about this? And it's like, right, yeah, but I did that. That was just for us, bud. But now I do it knowing he will bring it up.
Yeah.
So
Great. That's a good thing.
the main topic we did this week on the episode that came out today was I'm trying to figure out what's the point of clean comedy, because I usually work clean. I don't mind working clean, but I don't like it when people think of me as just a clean comedian. I'm like, I would actually rather you think of me as a good, funny comedian. But
Yeah.
also,
Funny comedian first.
if I'm showing up at your event, I did a retirement home last weekend where the show was literally 10:30 in the morning while everybody's having brunch. And it's like, okay, if I'm just here, if they just invite me to brunch, I'm not going to show up and start swearing at them and, screaming at them about politics. Or it's like, I want everyone to have a nice time. I'm just going to talk about how my name is dumb. Here's some stories of stuff that has happened to me that I thought was interesting that I think you guys might like. But then when I get places and I find out I have to work clean, it's like, well, now I don't want to actually. Like now I want to say some stuff. Like when I did the Dry Bar special, that is very clean. If people aren't familiar with the brand, it is just clean. They just put out clean comedy specials. Some of the jokes that I did on there they're on. A lot of it was just my first album that I just basically reused because I knew it was clean enough for them. But some of the jokes, it's like, ooh, this one actually, I don't know if it is. Like I do a joke about naming my daughter Tess because then her name would be Tess Tickle, and I was like,
Tess Tickle.
When I say it, I'm just saying a name. It is like technically clean, but like, is it clean enough for you guys? And then
maybe, or then your sister, right? Private.
Yeah, when she was in the army and she was Private Tickle, that one, it's like, it doesn't mean anything. It just sounds dirty.
Well, it's just on that.
I don't know if they're gonna cut them out or not. And I think both those jokes are on my first album, but I think they work better on the Dry Bar set because they are kind of walking that line of like, can you get away with this here?
Yeah. And you bring that up in that special too. You're kind of like, I know this is clean. Like, you know, I'm not saying it. I'm just saying the truth here. Like, it's a really fun line to tell.
Because I asked so to do those specials, you film 2 shows in a night. And I asked before the show started, I was like, hey, there's a couple jokes that like I think are clean, but you know, if they're not, tell me, I'll do something else. And I ran the jokes by the people on the crew, and they're like, well, they are kind of borderline, but do them on you're doing 2 shows. So like if you do them on the first show and the audience doesn't seem to like it, it probably means we'll cut it out. So just don't do it on the second one and then do a different joke then. But it worked. They worked both times. The special, I think, is almost entirely the first show. If I recall correctly, which I probably don't because it was over 5 years ago. My brain doesn't work well.
Well, this special for folks who want to get to know you, I actually told one of my friends that I was having you on the podcast, and he said, wait, I've seen his special, and it was this clip. So it's like in the ether, man. You got over 1 million.
It is wild to me when people know who I am before I meet like that. And again, it's not a lot of people. I know that, but I encounter them in the wild sometimes. And like one of my daughter's friends' dads knew who I was.
Yeah.
Like we were at soccer practice and like our kids had just met. They're starting to hang out at school and they want to get together outside of school. So we're like exchanging numbers so we can arrange a play date. And I was like, oh, hey, I'm Glenn. Nice to meet you. And he goes to put his name, my name in his phone. He's like, what's your last name? I was like, Tickle. He's like, oh, like the comedian. And I was like, exactly like the comedian, actually, because that is me.
That's me.
And he's like, he's like, I follow you on social media. I didn't recognize you. I was like, I mean, granted, it's like we're outside at soccer practice and I'm in, you know, a sweatshirt and shorts and not the suit that I have on in the Dry Bar special or whatever. But it's like, I think I kind of look the same, you know?
Yeah. But if people don't expect to see, you know, comedian,
I'm really bad at that too. Yeah. I'm really bad at recognizing people outside of the context I know them from.
Yeah.
Like if I run in when I teach stand-up comedy sometimes, I do tell everyone in the class, it's like, if I see you outside of here, don't feel bad if I don't recognize you right away. It's nothing just like say it's like, oh, hey, it's me, Doug from class, and then I'll remember.
Yeah.
But I don't if I don't expect to see, like if I'm trying to think of a better example, like it's when my kid sees their teacher outside of school, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, that's weird. And it's like, yeah, that it's like that, but for everybody all the time.
For sure. And it's kind of a thing like when you start to become known in this life and known for what you do, I think it's kind of a interesting battle that a lot of people have. And you're somebody who I think you should expect more of that because I think the world is going to get to know you and will continue to want to hear from you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. It is like I said, it's not a ton it doesn't happen constantly. I still get recognized as much from having been a substitute teacher in my town for a long time than I do for comedy stuff. But like when I show up at a new city I've never performed in and there's people there to see me, I'm always genuinely surprised. And it's like, why? How come I did a show in Ashland, Wisconsin, which is like all the way up north by Lake Superior. And it was like not a huge it was like 100-seat theater and they sold it out. And I was like, how come? I've never been here. Why is this just the only thing going on in town tonight? And they're like, no, they all know you from Dry Bar.
Yeah.
That's the thing that most people know me from.
Yeah.
Which is why I spend so much time thinking about my relationship with clean comedy of like, I was clean before Dry Bar. Like that's how I got that special by like primarily being a clean comedian. I think it's just like, I don't like having other people's expectations of what that word means put on me.
Yeah, I totally get it, because I mean I'm a comedian now myself, starting up and doing this kind of material. You wonder, some comedians can just shock with vulgarity, and it's
Yeah.
not very clever. That's not our bag of tricks here.
No, and when I started, I was substitute teaching, and I knew other comics who were teachers, and some of them were like performing under stage names and like not posting clips because they're like, oh, if my boss at the school, I guess that would be the prince. If the principal at the school finds out
Yeah,
that I'm doing this, I'm fired. And it's like, or do it differently. Like, don't. I was
yeah,
never worried. I didn't like when students found out I was a comedian because then they would like always try to get me to do jokes at school, which I didn't want to do.
yeah.
But it wasn't like they can't know because the material I'm doing would be
You should be
so
ashamed of
inappropriate.
yourself.
No, it was just like I don't want to talk. Like it's a different job than this one. I don't want to talk about it at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
But when they would find out, it's like, oh, okay, yes, this is another thing that I do when I'm not here handing out worksheets.
yeah,
But teachers and stuff would find out and like, you do comedy? I was like, yeah. And they're like, oh, can I see? I was like, yeah, there's clips online. And like, I'm not worried that you guys are going to see something that's going to get me in trouble. You
that's
might not
it.
like it, but
And that's the thing, is when comics are starting out, and you are wondering what is my style, what am I going to do. I kind of made a little rule for myself, which was, if my younger nephew were to find this someday, or niece, what would they think of Uncle Joe here? Is he going off
yeah.
the deep end, or is this something that they can say, I take pride in this, this is cool, this is who he is? It's a
I think
good
about
good
that
thing to
in the
have,
context of my own kids now.
right?
Um, because I was pretty clean the whole time I've been doing comedy, but after my older daughter was born, it was like more of a choice because it felt weird to be like, oh, here's a bunch of stories about this cute little baby that I love with my whole heart, and now here's like a really dirty sex joke or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it feels weird going from one to the other, and I would rather talk about the kid, and
Yeah.
uh, for me, I mean, audiences reacted when I started doing jokes about being a dad. Uh, those went over way better than the stuff I was doing before,
Right.
which is great because, as any new parent will tell you, like that's all they want to talk about. It's like, yeah, I want to talk about this more than I would. It's a common thing, like when you're starting out in comedy, you're like, oh god, what is funny? Like, what does an audience want to hear? And you're just
Yeah.
trying to think of topics, and it's why so many, like if you go to any open mic, you're gonna hear 8 jokes about the same event in the news that week because it's a bunch of comics being like, oh, I gotta write about something.
Yeah.
um but now it's like, oh no, I'm just gonna keep just talking about myself and stuff that I like,
Yeah.
which is why I
And
do so many jokes about that are stories about my life or jokes about Jurassic Park, or whatever.
yeah, you have it. You write what you know, and you write things that you are true, that allow us to get to know you better. And I think that creates a really personable character up there, which is why when we saw you, we said, this guy is just so real, so true. And it feels like you're talking to a friend that you're getting to know.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, man, it's the real deal, and I love your love of wild things. You mentioned bonsai.
Yeah,
Tell this
my
this was
favorite.
something my friend said. I clicked on one of the specials because it had that in the name.
Oh, against the World Crime League. Yeah. I
Yeah.
went last night. I went to a screening of it at the Gap Theater in Wind Gap, Pennsylvania. Um, and yeah, it's my favorite. It's a movie from 1984 that most people don't remember, and a lot of people who have seen it don't think it is very good. And I don't think they're wrong. I just love it anyway. But it is, it's not like, oh, I remember it fondly from childhood. I only watched it the first time within the past 7 years because I was talking to my daughter about my younger daughter yesterday. She's almost 7, and I was getting ready to go to the screening, and I mentioned, like, oh, I'm going to go see Buckaroo Banzai tonight. She's like, you watch that all the time. And it's like, I know, but I don't always get to see it in a theater. And I
Yeah.
was like, do you remember, like, do you want to know who the first person I ever watched this movie with was? And she's like, who? I was like, it was with you. Because when she was a little baby, she was like a couple weeks old, was not sleeping through the night. And I was just like up at 4 a.m. with a baby. I'm exhausted, but it's like, well, I had to stay up because the baby's up. So I'll put something on, scrolling through streaming services to find something. And I see the poster for it. And it's like, oh, I've heard of that movie, right? Like, that's a thing that I know a lot of other nerds have talked about, but wasn't widely available for a long time because it wasn't a success. So, like, it wasn't constantly on TV, or, everybody didn't have a VHS of it, like Star Wars or ET or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh yeah, I'll watch that. And like 15 minutes in, I was like, this is the greatest movie I think I've ever seen in my life.
It just fit your vibe. You found
I love it.
You found
I
some
love it so
comfort
much.
there.
Yeah.
Aw, that's so sweet.
And so, yeah, I got to see it again last night. I think that was my third time in a theater, fourth time on a big screen, because I saw it at a drive-in once.
Wow, that's great that it has such a cult following that you can kind of find it out in the
Yeah.
real world.
Well, every time I go, I do arrive very early because it's like, oh, well, if it fills up, I want to make sure I get a good seat. That's never been an issue. It's never filled up. I think there were maybe 20 people last night. But cool. I think when I went to see it at the drive-in, it was like peak pandemic. It was the first thing that I left my house to do. Wow. And it's like, well, it'll be outside. I don't really have to interact with anybody. But even then, I was like worried. But there was a good turnout. But it's like, well, yeah, this is one of the 3 things that we can do right now. Like, I'm sure people within a short drive of any drive-in were like, oh, I don't care what's playing. I just need to
see
get
anything
out of the
tonight.
House. Yeah.
Yeah. They could have Andy Warhol's Empire up there and we'll go watch it.
Yeah. I forget what the other movie was, but I didn't stay for it because it was pretty late. So I just drove home.
So you, how was COVID for all you, for your family and everything? Was that a difficult time to not be able to go do what you love?
I mean, we got through it. The biggest change for me as a comic was doing more stuff like this virtually, where I filmed the Dry Bar special January 2020.
Ooh, just in time.
And then I was like, oh, this will be great. When this comes out, I'll be able to like tour on it and like get to some new places, because I live in Jersey and like it's not as big of a thing here as it is in other parts of the country. And I've heard from like other comics that have done it, they're like, oh, if you have a good dry bar out, you can tour the Midwest forever. So it's like, oh, I've not really done that much in the Midwest. That like I'll get out there, and then the whole world shuts down. It took over a year and a half for them to put it out. So it came out July 2021. So things were starting to open, but I have an autoimmune disease. So I have a compromised immune system. So I was like, I know things are open. I'm not really ready to tour extensively. I was like doing some live shows. People were still doing stuff outdoors, but I did so many virtual shows of just like signing onto a Zoom call with 100 people and telling them jokes for an hour. And so many of my fellow comedians were just the whole time during the pandemic, they're just complaining about, they're like, oh, I'm not doing Zoom shows. That's dumb. That's not comedy. And it's like, right. But it is either this or don't do any comedy. And I like doing comedy. So I would rather do it in suboptimal settings than just not do it. But I knew people who were like, yeah, well, I'll take a year off. I don't care. And I was like, I can't. I need to do something. 2020, before, like, I think I did a couple virtual shows, but it was really after the Dry Bar set came out that I was doing more corporate ones. So like after that, I got really busy with them, where like December 2021, I think was the busiest I've ever been, because I was doing like multiple corporate Zoom comedy shows in a day.
Wow. And this was all with your own management still, under your own kind of pushing?
After the Dry Bar set came out, a booking agent reached out to me about the corporate stuff, and he's been handling most of that.
That's great.
But there's like sites and stuff that I use that people can reach out to me directly for booking.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So it's virtual shows have more or less dried up.
Yeah.
I do them occasionally, but like if I do 2 a month now, it's like, wow, I'm doing a lot lately. Whereas
Yeah.
like peak of it, I'm doing the most was 10 or 11. It was 10 or 11 in a day. I think it was supposed to be 11,
Whoa.
but
In
one
a
of them didn't
day.
end up happening. Yeah. I
Whew.
talk about it on Glen Tickle Against the World Crime League, the special your friend was talking about, because that's the
Yeah.
name of the never produced sequel for Buckaroo Banzai. But I did a show that started at 3:30 in the morning my time because the company I was doing it for was based in India, and they had offices all over. So they're like, "We'll have you do 3 different sets at different times." So that people in
Wow.
the different time zones can like whichever one works for them, they can sign on to. And it was like, great. So I think I was supposed to do like 3:30, 4:30, and then like later in the day. But I had so many like it was 3 for the same company, and then just a bunch of other stuff lined up for the rest
Wow.
of the
Getting
day.
on at 3 a.m. to do comedy. That's
It felt
pretty weird.
insane. Because as I talk about in the joke, they were all muted and their cameras were off.
Huh.
So I was doing them from the shed in my yard because it's like, well, I can't, my kids were younger then, so it's like you can't tell a 3-year-old that daddy needs to be left alone because he's doing Zoom comedy. That's gonna mean nothing. So I'm like, if I do it in the shed, I can like close the door. It'll be a separate quiet area. So I'm sitting in a shed in the middle of the night in December, and I'm just telling jokes at a black screen. And I was like, I don't know what's happening. What in my life has led me to this?
How did I get
And
here?
yeah, because I've done other ones where like everyone or most people are muted and their cameras off, and it's like, yeah, it is better for me if I can see and hear you, and I imagine better if you guys could hear each other. But I mean, I'll
Yeah.
do it. One company recently just had me pre-record a virtual show, and I
Huh.
was like, I mean, I will, but why?
A little
Like
special just for our company.
you're just gonna watch a video of me telling jokes to silence? That sucks. Like I just play the special. Like just tell me you had a good time. It's on YouTube. You don't have to pay. It's already there. Just don't sit
Yeah.
down and watch it together. I mean, I'll do
Oh,
it. You guys, they pay well, so it's like,
I'll
yeah, I
take your money.
will, but I don't. It's not going to be good, is it? And I found that video recently. I was going through hard drives looking for something, and I was like, I should post this.
Yeah.
It is just basically the dry bar set because when I do corporate stuff, it's that because I get booked because of that usually because
Yeah.
uh, it's so clean. They're like, oh, this guy can do in a half hour, super clean. It won't be a problem. So a lot of it when I do corporate gigs is like stuff from that special. So it's not like, oh, it's material that's already out there, but it is just like me alone. I think I did it in my laundry room, and it's just like I'm trying to like sell the jokes, but it's just it looks insane.
Yeah. It looks like a crazy person, but
We
you have the heart still. I'm sure it got across. The
we need the
feelings got
feedback,
there.
Well, that's
Yeah.
I had to kind of break myself of it because through doing all these virtual shows, it's like I don't care anymore if the show's going well.
Yeah.
Where before the pandemic, it's like, oh, if the show's not going well, I'm like sweaty and I'm like, oh no, these people don't like me. But you can't really tell over Zoom if it's going well or not?
Yeah.
So you just have to like assume that it is and act like it is. And I got so used to just doing that of just being like, look, I don't care if there's 1,000 people or if there's 5. I will act like this is going great and everyone's loving it. And then I would go back and watch clips of shows that are like underattended, I'll say. And it's like, I look like a crazy person
You might as well
where,
be at Carnegie Hall.
yeah. And it's like, it just looks like I genuinely don't understand my surroundings.
Out of
And
touch, but killing
yeah,
it.
and it's like, oh, I got to meet halfway here with myself because there's a benefit to that. Like if a show's not going well or if there's not a lot of people and you as the comic just keep bringing it up and like talking about how the audience doesn't like you. Like that's not how you get out of that spin.
No.
But not acknowledging it at all just makes you look crazy. So I've had to figure out kind of like the middle ground with it of like, okay, I need to acknowledge the reality of the situation without making it worse for myself. So a lot of like the hour that I'm doing now is it is based around like that idea kind of like I want to be a better comedian. So and that is like a way to do it's like, okay, if you just act like there's 1,000 people and there's 10, you look crazy. That's not the way to do it. But if there's 50 people and you want there to be 100 and you're like mad at the 50 people who showed up, that's not good either. So you got to like figure out the middle ground. Plus, I don't like interacting with the audience or people in general. And I don't want to do like crowd work where people are like, oh, what do you do for work? I don't care what people do for work. It's like the least interesting thing about them. Unless like it's somebody who really loves what they do and they want to like tell me why. But, you know, most people don't want to talk about their job. They don't like their job. Not everybody gets to be a comedian, you know? If there's some accountant who hates doing it, he doesn't want to talk about it on Friday.
He's here to
night.
escape.
He's been doing it all week. He doesn't want to talk about it.
So true.
So trying to figure out like, how can I engage with the audience more, but not resort to being like, oh, hey, you guys on a date? I don't care if you're on a date. I don't. But then it's a lot of it. It was like upon further reflection, it's like, I think some of these are actually character flaws and maybe less about comedy specifically and more about, I need to be a better person.
No. You're doing your setup there. You know, you're in the zone.
Well, that is like the show that I'm doing now. The working title is Glen Tickle Tries to Be a Better Person. I crossed out better. It's just Glen Tickle Tries to Be a Person. And it is, it was based on like the beginning of the year. I have, you know, roughly an hour of material, but I know it all. And I still like usually bring a set list up on stage with me. I rarely look at it. It's more as like a comfort item.
What kind of paper? Usually
just a notebook, whatever I have on hand. Sometimes like a Post-it or something. It's usually, and it's like a couple of words. It's when I work with like newer comics in the intro to stand-up class, and I talk about a set list, and they like bring in a set list. After I tell them it is just like a 1-page single space, and it's like, oh no, here's mine, and I show them a recent set list, and it'll be like 6 words, and I was like, that's an hour. That's roughly an hour of comedy. And then
see, this is important stuff to learn, because as myself, I've gotten up there before with a couple of pages of ideas, and then I go over time, and you realize like, oh, less is more.
I mean, the audience doesn't want to be read to. I realize that, but it's also like, well, I know the joke, and when I teach the intro to stand-up class, everyone is worried. They're like, what if I forget, right? Like, what if I go blank and I don't remember the joke? And I'm like, well, don't do that. just work on memorizing it. But the spot that most people go blank is not, they're like, oh, I don't remember the next part of this joke. You forget the next joke that you wanted to tell. So people know their jokes, but you don't know the order that you wanted them to go in. So I will just write like name, because I have a lot of jokes about my name, and then like kids, I have a lot of jokes about my kids. Mr. T, I have a lot of jokes right now about 80s celebrity Mr. T. And it's like I know all of those jokes. It's just like if I go blank while I'm doing the name jokes, it's like I don't remember the next one. All right, what's the next topic? All right, kids. And then just move on to that.
That's great.
But I have the benefit of having been doing this for 15 years. So if I don't remember the joke I wanted to tell, I have other jokes. I'll just do another one. But when you're starting out and you're doing your first 5-minute set at an intro to stand-up comedy class at a local art center and you go blank, it's not, you don't have a decade and a half of like backlog to pull from. You're like, oh no,
Yeah.
I only wrote 6 jokes and I don't remember 2 of them. Like then it's a bigger
you've been through
concern.
You've 15 years, man. What was it like for you starting out, and then talk a little bit about where you are now? What are your goals now?
Sure. I started in 2009 and in the Lehigh Valley of Pennsylvania. I live in New Jersey, but the part of Jersey I'm in, there is very little going on. So I have to drive out to usually Bethlehem is where I perform. Like if I'm doing a local open mic, it's usually one of the ones there. The system that I really liked when I started out, and I would love to see more places replicate this. So there was a brewery like restaurant that had 2 locations. It was the Bethlehem Brewworks and the Allentown Brewworks. Sunday night was the open mic at the Bethlehem Brewworks. And then once a month, there was a Tuesday night show at the Allentown Brewworks. And they would just pull in 4 or 5 comics from the open mic to do that showcase. But then they would have a professional comic come headline. And it was usually not like a big name. It's just like a working comedian from either New York or Philly, because the Lehigh Valley is kind of pretty close to both those cities. And it's like, oh, we could get a good comedian who's probably, you know, like a road feature more than like a big headliner. But they're like, we could get, it's Tuesday night. There's not, it's usually slow for comics. Like shows usually are on the weekend or you're traveling Sunday, you know, or Thursday. So Tuesday night's a great way to get cheap comics. Anybody listening?
Hey, that's when our Snugs open mic is in New Paltz, first Tuesday of the month.
So the idea is it kind of gives everyone at the open mic a goal where it got to the point where like everybody, I think you end up taking it very seriously as like a newer comic. You're like, oh, I got to get on that Tuesday mic. And then like, if you don't get asked for a while, people start resenting each other. And it's like, I don't know, maybe like look inward about why you're taking that part of it so seriously. Yeah. But it gave you like a goal where it's like, okay, I want to be good enough so that they book me on the Tuesday night unpaid show at the other Brewworks. And it's like, it's a very achievable goal, but so many open mics are just like, okay, yeah, like you can come, you can do 5 minutes, whatever. It's at a bar. Who cares? Like, it's just going to be other comedians. Maybe one of the other comedians produces a show and will have you on. But I think the system of, and it used to be the way like clubs worked of, you know, Monday or Tuesday was amateur night. That was the open mic. And the bookers from the club were there because they needed new acts to put up. But now, if you go to an open mic at a club in New York, like the staff of the club is not you. Like you're lucky to get a bartender. It's just the other comics. It's a produced event where, you know, they give somebody the keys. Everybody, you're paying your $5 or whatever for a spot. And same thing, like maybe one of those other comics books a show and sees you and puts you on something. But I love that there was at the time, I mean, like a structured, you know, there's no guarantee you're ever getting booked. It wasn't directly an audition, but you knew the guys who run that open mic are the ones who run that showcase. So you do that open mic a couple times, you do well enough, you get to do the showcase. And then you have a not particularly impressive credit, but a credit. And then, you know, you get to work with a professional comedian. And if you keep doing it, then you meet a few of them. Some of them, you know, might bring you to open. My friend Jay Black is a comedian here in Jersey. And I met him from doing those showcases. He, you know, once a year came up and was the headliner. And I did one of the shows he was on. And then, you know, a friend of mine booked him and me on another show, and then he booked me to go do a college gig with him. He was the one who like gave me a lot of advice about starting out in APCA. You've probably, if you've been to those events, you've probably seen him.
I have seen him. Yeah,
he's tremendous. If anybody's looking for a comedian to enjoy, I highly recommend Jay Black.
That's awesome.
But he, it's like, well, that's how I got to know him, from doing that. And so there was an open mic in Bethlehem that I was hosting for a while at a venue where they were trying to figure out, it's like a nonprofit arts venue. So they are trying to they're a lot pickier about content, like they don't want people coming up and being like, edgy or offensive.
Yep.
But they're also not like, it's not dry bar. They're like, we don't really care if you're clean. It's just like, we don't want to upset anybody, is their kind of approach.
I kind of have that too. No hate speech.
Yeah.
Rule. Simple.
Yeah, you would think. And yet,
some comics are like, fuck you, no hate speech.
But when they would do it, they're like, a lot of local comics weren't adhering to those guidelines. And we had like a town hall meeting between the venue and local comics. And I'm not an employee of the venue. I just do a lot of stuff there. So I was like in between those worlds of like, look, I work with this place a lot. They're not my boss. But I'm also not, an open micer trying to get away with, doing a set where it's just, here's a list of my favorite racial slurs. So it's like, guys, I think I understand both sides of this more than anyone else in this room. Yeah. And they worked out a system where it's a more established comic will do like a 3-month hosting stint with a newer comic to like kind of mentor them, show them how to host. I agreed to do it despite the fact that I don't like hosting. I do not think I'm good at hosting. So I agreed to do it. I'm happy to just do it as the newer comic. If like one of my friends who hosts better wants to do the actual part. But then they do a showcase after the 3 months. The newer comic gets to book a showcase made up of people who have been doing the open mic for those 3 months.
Wow.
And it's like, great. That gives them a reason to come to the open mic, gives you a reason to try to do a good job. But then the showcase, the showcase at the end of the period that I was hosting, I went and I was like, oh, you know what? I don't think there's a reason for the audience to come to this because the open mic is free. And weirdly, that venue gets like an audience for the open mic. Like people just come to watch, which is unusual for an open mic. It's a good problem to have, right? We want audience members as comedians. But because of the showcase, like everyone wants to do a good job, but then you go to the showcase and you're like, oh, this is actually just 5 or 6 of the people from the open mic that I could see for free on Tuesdays. And then I realized what was missing was like, oh, you need to bring in that headliner. Like that's what worked so well when I was starting out, of like the audience will sit through a couple local comics trying their best, but they want to see the pro at the end,
Yeah.
But then if you get your first showcase spot, you're going to tell all your friends, they're going to come. So then that headliner, it's like, well, yeah, I'll go to Allentown, Pennsylvania for $200 because for whatever reason, there's going to be 200 people there. And the reason is you cycle in these newer comics, they bring all their friends out, right? And then the show goes on for a while. Those audiences remember the headliners, like, oh, Jay Black's coming back. That guy's incredible. I'll go to that one. And then you kind of build this following. But with the showcase that I went to, fewer people than at the open mic. And it's like, oh, because you can just see the show for free on a different night. There's no reason. There's no reason.
There's no pull. That's wild. Well, these are really good, helpful, advice for producing and good problems to have. And here you are now, you're a bit more, advanced, you have it together. What are your eyes set on as far as this next journey of comedy and in the world today? What is the role of the comedian?
Look, I've got next week I go on tour with Ricky, who I was talking about earlier with the podcast. We're doing the first leg of
Daddy-o.
shows for the Daddy-O tour. And so this is the way we're doing it is different than I've done shows in the past, where typically I just like wait around and wait for people to ask me to do stuff, and then I say yes or no. But this is a lot more proactive on our part than I'm used to being. Largely due to Ricky. He is great about reaching out to people and requesting things, and I am not. So a good bit of advice is like find friends who do the stuff that you don't like to do.
Yeah.
Where like when he and I do the podcast, and it's like, well, yeah, I'll handle all the tech end of it, right? Like I'll handle Riverside, I'll get the clips out, I'll do all that stuff. And he's like, oh, good, I don't want to do any of that. It's like, deal.
Great.
So like he will, email bookers and venues, and I don't have to. But
Great symbiosis.
yeah. So we're doing a couple theaters where it's like, oh yeah, this is the venues didn't reach out to us. Like we reached out to them, and some of the shows that we have coming up, we've been working with Chris Kettler from Crackpots in Ohio to set up the shows. And it's like, yeah, I don't know how these are going to go. I want them to go well, but it's if ideally they go well, and then it's like, okay, well this model seems to be working, and
yeah,
it's not really something I've done before, because it's like, I guess just like a lack of confidence that people will come see me. But then, like I said, I will go places and then there's a weirdly large audience sometimes. And it's like, okay, yeah, I feel weird just accepting the fact that there's people out there who want to see my work.
I feel that. Oh, you're going to change that because you're worthy of it, man. You definitely deserve it.
But yeah, we hopefully you reached out initially. I put a thing up on Instagram where I was like, oh, let me do your podcast. There's a thing I want to talk about. And then I found out 2 days ago that I'm not supposed to talk about the thing yet. I have to wait until July. But it's about the Glen Tickle Tries to Be a Person show. I'm doing it somewhere, but I'm not allowed to talk about where that is yet. But
Glen Tickle will be a person.
Yeah, I will. But that is like the material I'm touring with right now is largely that. It is like me
crafting
trying to address issues.
Yeah. Well, isn't that a great thing? How us comedians, we work on ourselves and try to be better, or just try to be a person. And there you end up teaching others and making us laugh at ourselves throughout the journey. So it's a great thing.
There's another comic. I'm blanking on your name, but a guy I follow on Threads. He's probably easy to find because every post that he puts up on there starts with being a comedian is, and then explains what it is. The other day he put one where he's like, being a comedian is like trying to use comedy to be a better person, or I forget the exact wording.
Yeah.
But I replied, I was like, that is literally like the framing structure of the current hour that I'm working on. Like that's all.
You're getting vulnerable, Glenn. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I hear a good laugh in the other room. I don't know if that came in. Vulnerability is funny, and pushing yourself out there, revealing to all of us what it's like to be a dad, to be a husband. Are you married?
Yeah.
Talk about the mother for Mother's Day real quick here. How do you guys work together?
Pretty well, I think. I've known her a long time. One of the things I talk about in the show now is that my wife, I think I might have done it on a version of this on the earlier one, but my wife and I met when we were 12. I changed schools in the 7th grade, and we've been friends ever since. And yeah, we just had our 19th wedding anniversary last month. And yeah, a couple of years ago, somebody pointed out, like, oh, you talk about your kids a lot on stage, but you don't really bring up your wife that much. And part of it is like when I was a kid and I would start watching comedy, so much of comedy in like the 80s and 90s was just middle-aged men complaining about their wives in a way that it's like, what? Then leave. Like which I don't understand. But
take my
so
wife,
it's like, well,
please.
yeah, it's like, well, I don't want to do that. You know, it's like I like mine, and it's
Yeah.
But on Crime League, there's a pretty long bit about her because during the pandemic we got chickens in the backyard, and I was like, I'm not going to tell you no, but what are we doing? Like it just seems like it's going to be so much more work. And I didn't think to like she came. I recorded that on our wedding anniversary, but I think that was the 17th. So it's like not a big number. Like it's when the venue asked if I wanted to do it that night, I was like, let me just double check. I think it'll be fine. So she came, and I didn't think until like right before we were sitting backstage eating dinner. I was like, oh, just so you know, there's like a pretty long bit about you getting chickens in here. And she's like, yeah, I kind of figured. It's like, yeah.
Oh, that's great
but,
when you get the partner's approval.
Yeah, but like none of it is like, this broad, right? It's just like, no, it's, you know, sometimes it is jokes about stuff that she does that I think is weird, like get chickens.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, we get along. Like it's so many of my jokes about my kids are like, well, yeah, like they're weird. Like not mine specifically, but I mean mine specifically, but just kids in general.
Kids are weird.
Yeah. And doing colleges and stuff, so many of the advisors and even like agents that I met doing APCA and stuff, they're like, oh, well, like you don't talk about your wife and kids at colleges, do you? And I was like, of course I do. That's what I do. And they're like, right, but they're not going to understand. I was like, what are you talking? Of course they will. They're not.
We've all
idiots.
been kids.
Yes. Like the line I do on stage is like, I'm sure like statistically most of them aren't married and don't have kids, but like some of them are and some of them do, but also like the rest of them probably understand basic familial relationships, and I'm willing to bet they've seen a child before. Because there is comedy out there that is like aimed at parents, that is like very specific like parent comedy, and I'm not saying that to like disparage it. It's just like there's comedy out there for parents where it's like, well, yeah, I understand this because I am also a parent. But that's true of anything. There's, you know, physics jokes where like if you don't know physics, you're not going to get the joke. I don't think that's what my jokes are about my kids. Like I don't think you need to have children to understand that sometimes children say and do weird, funny things. But it is also like a challenge with it is like, well, I don't want my set to just be like kids say the darndest things, you know? But I talk about them on stage the same way that I talk about anything, which is like the joke is ultimately about me because I'm very self-centered and I only want to talk about stuff that I think is interesting. So I do, I do a lot of jokes about my kids. I also do a lot of jokes about Star Wars and Jurassic Park. I've been less successful with jokes about Buckaroo Banzai because that is, again, like not a lot of people know that movie. Like even if you're not a big Star Wars fan, you know there's a movie called Star Wars and they fight with laser swords and there's a guy named Darth Vader. Like that, you can follow some basic jokes.
We're with you. We're with you on that.
Yeah.
and Jurassic Park, you love dinosaurs?
I love Jurassic Park specifically. As a kid, I really loved dinosaurs. But then I think it was just Jurassic Park after that. It was just like, oh, this movie is incredible.
I love Jeff Goldblum more. Yeah.
He's in both Jurassic Park and Buckaroo Banzai. I was supposed to go to a screening of Buckaroo Banzai for the 40th anniversary. Alamo Drafthouse had it in their summer rotation. I was supposed to go see it in Manhattan with some friends. I had to cancel on them because I booked a corporate gig in South Carolina. But I was like, oh, I know there's a Drafthouse in Raleigh, North Carolina. So my show was the night before the screening. So it's like, all right, I'll just leave early in the morning. I'll stop in Raleigh. My best friend lives there, so it's like he and I will go watch Buckaroo Banzai together. He's never seen it for as much as I talk about it. So it's like, oh, it's not my original plan, but I'll still get to see it. I'll get to see my friend. It'll still be a nice time. And then my friends who went to the Manhattan screening started texting me photos of them with Jeff Goldblum and Peter Weller. And I was like, all right. It's like yeah, that would have been pretty neat, actually. I was kind of more excited for Jeff Goldblum than I think I would have been Peter Weller. He just put a book out. He has a doctorate in Italian Renaissance art, and he gets so annoyed when people only want to talk to him about RoboCop and Buckaroo Banzai and stuff. He's like, I've had a full life.
I've done a lot of things.
But he is doing press around his book release. And in a lot of the press, people will ask him about Buckaroo Banzai. He's like, I had no idea what that movie is about. And I think it shows. It shows.
Like, I still don't know.
He's like, I don't understand. I don't know. He's like, I tried my best. It was fun, but I couldn't tell you what happens. And it's like, you feel it watching the movie. You're like, this guy's got.
He's lost just saying. That.
There's I think it's a Humphrey Bogart quote of like, if you don't know how to say a line, sometimes you just got to say the words out loud. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, he's just saying it and hoping they can move on to the next scene.
I gotta watch it. Well, thank you so much, man, for sharing everything with us.
It's great talking with you, Joe.
It's great talking with you too. And for folks, check out Glen Tickle. Is there what's your glentickle.com is where you can see
that's got the links for everything if you go up there.
Man. Well, thank you so much. God bless you and have a great rest of your weekend, Mother's Day weekend with your family.
You too. Thanks, Joe.
Peace and love.
Yeah, it's go time, people. This isn't the dress rehearsal. This is your freaking life right now, okay? There's nobody saying, hold on, stay in the wings, because it's going to start soon. As Pink Floyd would say, you missed the starting gun, okay? It's time. Oh, ah.